Hi, I'm Chuck Fall. This is Truth Action Project Tap Talk. We just some quick disclaimers that all the opinions and presentations put at Tap Talk are not official to the TAP policy. Emanuel is running for president, and I'll review our newsletter, and we highlight that TAP cannot endorse candidates pursuant to the rules around a 501(c)(3), but we can hold space in society as we're doing on Zoom to share important ideas in the truth movement. And definitely, Emmanuel is a champion for truth, and we get to hear from him tonight. I'm going to share my screen and go into our newsletter. And what I want to invite people to do is subscribe to our newsletter at truthactionproject.org, subscribe button, and enter your data and for name, and you get the newsletter, which announces what's happening tonight. Our guest is Emanuel Pastrich. He is running 2028 in a Fear No Evil campaign. You can get clicks here to Emanuel's Substack. Emanuel is a partner with TAP through his Center for Truth Politics. And so there's our disclaimer. We can't make partisan endorsements. We are secular, 501(c)(3), nonpartisan. At our Tuesday Tap Talks, we aim to create I call it a digital clearing. It's the zeros and ones transmitted into our Zoom. And for a place in society for frank, honest, and civil discourse dedicated to truth and accountability and justice for state crimes against democracy. That link takes you to our media statement on September 11th. We talked about that before we started recording. And this is the board of directors at TAP voted unanimously to recognize that September 11th attacks qualify as a state crime against democracy. So you can click and find that. So Emanuel, I'll say, is my friend, and I've come to know him through his postings at Global Research. You had a 2020 run for the president on your independent ticket. There's an introduction here in our newsletter, which I'm not going to read through and let you read it. But I just want to say that, let me see, we do have so the links are here. There's the campaign. I just did want to kind of share that. You have a website up and people can visit, and you will be getting the donate button up and running. So I'm going to say without further ado that our connection is through kind of a green liberty interest in calling out state crimes, demanding justice, demanding accountability from the billionaire class, and to build a better society that's not dominated by the billionaire class. And I think we share egalitarian values. We're not afraid about talking about Marx and leftist stuff, and we can talk about free markets and making the better society as well. So without further ado, Emanuel, share with us any additional introductory remarks, and then share what you have for a presentation, and then we will do question and answer and some invite discussion, and then we will end the recording, and then we hang out and chat on Tap Talks. So Emanuel, you are, I think, unmuted, so please share.
Well, Chuck, thank you very much for having me. I have a sort of 20-minute formal presentation, and then we can talk about literally anything. This campaign is meant to be open by its very nature.
Okay.
I'm honored that Chuck Fall has invited me to speak with you today about the gravest of matters. Chuck served as treasurer for my run against Cornel West in the Green Party, and now he bravely leads Truth Action Project. We tried then to make truth politics the core issue for the revival of the Green Party. But we discovered in the process that this so called opposition party was sadly riddled with operatives on contract to private intelligence firms like Cassie and Booz Allen Hamilton, whose job it is to make sure that no serious political action is ever taken, that the American citizens are marinated in hopeless complaining and despair, so that action and truth never cross their minds as an option in politics. What an honor to be with you here today to deliver my opening speech, the declaration of my candidacy for president in 2028, right here today. I would not want to have one more person than those gathered here, people dedicated to the cause. I do not have to tell you that this is no ordinary election. We are starting this presidential campaign, now formally registered and with our site up, before the midterm elections for a reason. This speech comes not a moment too soon. The American political system is in free fall. Republican mercenaries are tearing apart the electoral system in preparation for rigged midterms, or no midterms, while their Democratic collaborators hold down the victims and truth tellers to make that job easier. We witness the controlled demolition of government, journalism, education, medicine, law, ethics, and civilization itself. Endless war for the profit of banks, the commodification of the bodies and minds of citizens, of our water and soil, of our oceans and lakes, of low orbit space, and even the moon is proceeding apace while we are encouraged to throw rotten tomatoes at the idiot President Trump. Enough. I condemn unambiguously the stealth takeover of our country by private equity and multinational corporations, that is to say, the Epstein class. I call out the 9/11 abomination, denounce the COVID reign of terror and the deadly vaccine regime. I request an end to the counterfeiting undertaken by the Federal Reserve and the banks, and I demand an end to the false flag operations at shopping malls and schools across our country and the targeting of individuals for experimentation by contractors with security clearances. When I speak about an American revolution, a second American revolution, I'm not using an off the shelf slogan made up for me by political consultants, but rather rallying with you for action, putting forth a clarion call to overturn the corrupt governmental, educational, and financial system, and to revitalize the decadent culture that droops over them all. This narcissistic culture has crippled our nation. The data masters in the shadows have buried the Constitution in a shallow grave, while profit driven zombies embracing extraction, exploitation, and indulgence as necessary virtues wander our land like a biblical plague. Such times that try our souls demand a different candidate, not a favorite of Wall Street, not a darling of the billionaires, but rather someone who marches forward with ordinary working people, not one who follows covert orders from billionaire donors or from Homeland Security directives. I do not have the money nor the leisure to outsource the hard work to operatives. I am not here to bitch about people who do not fit my identity politics schemata or to promote ghost dance, toothless ritual protests. I stand with you and I am here to learn from you, the decent working people of America, the real America. I will not hesitate to do what is necessary to end the butchery of our nation by parasitic financial interests, by a flaccid military elite that is loyally licking the hand of its moneyed master. I am launching this campaign not with fundraisers in Manhattan or Beverly Hills for elites who patronize child trafficking networks, not with rounds of golf with the CEOs of BlackRock and Goldman Sachs, but with town hall meetings like this and many more to come that are completely open to the people, to working people, to people who struggle to educate their children and who scramble to pay the rent. Believe me, I know what it's like. I have been unemployed myself since the launch of the COVID reign of terror, too, working here and there to make ends meet, but never making enough to support my family. I never wanted to be one of the elites who flies around in private planes or lives on a private island. I do not want to meet them. I want to seize their assets and lock them up for their role in state crimes. I am, I should be, a perfect mirror of you, struggling to survive in a hostile environment designed to benefit those who have the most. Change will not rain down from the heavens. We do not want any more cardboard messiahs summoned up by the powerful, no more Trojan horses trotted out by the rich. They have spent billions to dumb us down, to lock up or banish those who opposed their ruthless rule. They have scratched out these words, from the Declaration of Independence. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. We are not cowed by their fake show of power. We are not consumers to be toyed with. We are citizens empowered to govern by our Constitution. So, I ask you, what do the Republicans and their sidekick, vestigial twin Democrats advocate? What policies do they propose today? War, war, and more war is their economic policy, their security policy, their educational policy, and their welfare policy. War against ordinary citizens, ordinary people abroad, with mercenary special forces, war against ordinary people at home with ICE bandits carrying badges. War is the only way they can stimulate the moribund economy that they have created, the hedge fund Frankensteins and the derivative demons, because they have stripped the nation of all the natural and healthy means of production. I say, tear down those gaudy digital facades. Seize those data centers like the Bastille. We will not serve shadow kings who rule through lobbyists and private intelligence operatives. Stand with us against the rising tide of barbarism, ignorance, and greed. We will not beg these techno tyrants and biofascists for anything. Hot tears run down our cheeks when we behold our shattered nation. But we are not discouraged in the least. We demand all the louder the truth, and we seek all the more uncompromising justice. Let me share now with you the critical elements of my platform in this run for the presidency. Freedom. Release all secret documents concerning the COVID-19 destruction of the economy, the forced compliance with deadly vaccines, and demand full compensation and criminal liability from the multinational banks and corporations who carried out that reign of terror. Launch international scientific investigations into the 9/11 false flag operation to determine the exact chain of command within the American, Israeli, Saudi, British, and other governments that planned and carried out this crime and demand the confiscation of all the assets of corporations and billionaires around the world who were behind it. Enforce the 13th Amendment, prohibiting slavery so that no workers, citizens, or immigrants will be treated as slaves. That means forced to accept jobs that do not pay a decent wage and grant health care and retirement benefits. End secret governance in the United States and make public all of the unconstitutional programs that determine policy or give orders to government institutions, corporations, or individuals using classified directives, secret law, non disclosure agreements, or other opaque and unaccountable means. Liberty. Defend the right to privacy of all and end the intrusive use of technology by corporations and governments. Stop corporations from using technology to manipulate citizens and recognize the dangers of so-called AI that has been deployed for ruthless social control. Encourage all citizens to think for themselves scientifically and to avoid dependency on technologies run by masters behind the screen. Corporations are not people and do not have the right to lobby or to invoke special privileges. The government must represent the people, and each citizen gets only one vote. Only one vote. Millionaires and billionaires are not entitled to any form of special access by lobbying or bribery. Halt the campaign to dumb us down. We are subject to campaigns by corporations in advertising, entertainment, social media, news, and education that are meant to induce anti-intellectual sentiments, to inhibit the ability to focus, and to promote shallow thinking. These horrific, narcissistic campaigns undermine civil society, destroy families, and render us passive before the dark forces of techno-fascism. Defend neural rights for all by ending the use of advanced technologies to monitor, to manipulate, or to alter human cognition without consent or even awareness. Security. Transform the military intelligence complex into institutions that defend citizens against real threats like the takeover of our economy, by global finance, the use of technology to control society using IT and private intelligence firms, the promotion of information and psychological warfare, the use of nanoweapons and directed energy weapons, and the deadly impact of climate change and mindless resource depletion. Bring the U.S. military home. The United States should have returned to a peacetime economy after the Second World War. The decision to make us the world's policeman is the primary cause of the current social and economic decay. The military must be trimmed down, brought home, and focused on real threats, not made-up monsters that justify juicy budgets. The United Nations must be upgraded so that it functions in a transparent manner to promote peace, and it is completely independent of multinational financial institutions. Climate change, and above all, the collapse of biodiversity, the sixth great extinction, are the overwhelming security threats we face. The response must involve every single aspect of domestic and foreign policy. We must eliminate nuclear weapons from the earth, starting with the United States. The United States is currently spending trillions of dollars developing new nuclear weapons and upgrading the thousands it already has. Instead, we should be eliminating all of these dangerous and outdated weapons. The risk of nuclear war that will destroy humanity has reached an unprecedented high, and that demands action. Economy. Trade must be ecological and truly free. Most of what we need for sustenance should be manufactured or grown at the local level and the money generated thereby should stay there locally and not be extracted by multinational banks. Global trade to generate profits for the few, impoverish workers around the world, and destroy our environment must end. The takeover of the economy by multinational banks and corporations that pay little or no taxes, that take a cut out of every transaction, and that use immoral tax tactics to destroy the economy will end. Compensation will be given to the victims of this illegal and immoral global economic takeover. The creation of money and the determination of its value must be undertaken with the authorization of Congress and must be handled in a transparent and democratic manner. Counterfeiting of money, which is the cause of inflation by the Federal Reserve, private banks, the Department of Defense, and other international and local and domestic institutions, must end. We must stop using wasteful and destructive metrics like growth and consumption to assess the economy and the contributions of our citizens. Taking time off from work to care for a sick parent is a priceless contribution to our economy, whereas speculation in hedge funds is a crime. We must embrace the principle of the Iroquois nation. Consider the impact of our current actions on the seventh generation after us. Farming is an essential part of an independent and self sufficient citizenry and a healthy economy. We must end corporate factory farming for profit and restore sustainable family farms. It will be family farming, producing healthy organic food locally and not AI or semiconductors that will drive our future economy. Revolution. Neither the Republican Party nor the Democratic Party, parasitic syndicates in the pay of the rich, are described in the Constitution. Neither has authority in the creation of policy. Policy must be formulated in a transparent manner by a Congress that represents the citizens with advice from objective subject experts who consider without bias the long term interests of the people. We will not recognize any election that is not fair. Massive manipulation of local, state, and federal election results by corporations that count votes, the implementation of policies making it impossible for working people, for poor people to get accurate information, or even to get to the polls to vote or have their votes counted, and the exclusion of candidates advocating for truth by corporate media. All of this must end. All of this is criminal. Every citizen must be guaranteed the right to vote, the right to reliable information, and the right to run for office. We must support education for everyone. That means education that teaches citizens, above all, how to think for themselves in a scientific manner, that promotes self reliance and emphasizes moral judgment and ethical behavior. Citizens should be taught how to grow their own food, how to generate their own energy, how to make clothes and furniture, and establish independent communities. Investigative journalism aimed at educating the people about the critical issues in our society cannot be produced by newspapers and broadcast networks dependent on advertising or controlled by corporations. Sources of information for citizens, like newspapers, magazines, and broadcasting, must be run as transparent and accountable cooperatives devoted to scientific truth and moral decency. The current crisis is a spiritual one. While we slept, our nation drifted into decadence and narcissism. We mistook the surface appearances of temporary prosperity for the depths of human wisdom and morality. Modesty, frugality, and integrity have vanished from our vocabularies. especially in the political sphere, replaced by a poisonous culture of the spectacle. I'm honored to have this chance to address everyone today, and I look forward to hearing your suggestions, your opinions, and I hope that we can work together to realize the full potential of the United States as put forth in the Declaration of Independence, in the Constitution, and in the best of our political tradition, from Thomas Paine to Frederick Douglass to Eugene Debs, Martin Luther King, and others. And I hope that together we can realize some of the potential therein and make America great for the first time.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I'm going to just ask a couple questions, and people can raise their hands and participate. Um, so you're using the run for the U.S. presidency as a bully pulpit, and why, of all the ways to communicate with the world, are you going for the bully pulpit? I mean,
Um,
is it because it's the bully pulpit? I mean, is it because being running for president gives you command of a whole range of issues and arguments and positions? I mean, what would you say to my question?
well, I would answer to say that this is a serious campaign. And although I don't assume that I'm going to become president, I certainly have that in mind as a goal. So the question might be to you, how would you go from having no money and a limited audience to becoming president of the United States? The answer is quite simple. We denounce and demand that all the other candidates pull out because they've taken money from corporations, investment banks, and billionaires who are all pushing state crimes. None of them, not a single person in the US Congress is qualified to run for office at this moment because they have all cooperated in a techno fascist conspiracy against the citizens of the United States. So, my strategy for becoming president is to question the very foundations on which the political system runs, to say that none of my opponents have any legitimacy in running for office.
Okay, strong answer. You've got a team that you've built up, a campaign team. I mean, you have to have a treasurer. You've, I think, registered with the Federal Elections Commission. Talk about your team and what you all share in common. You have the common experience of being targeted, and talk about that.
Right, right. Well, that is, of course, a big part of this. I wouldn't say that the campaign is, as you know, it's been going on for 6 years, and now I've gotten better at giving speeches and writing them, and I have a certain small constituency out there,
Mhm.
maybe larger than it may appear, but the core group that setting up the website, setting up the bank account, doing the hard lifting at the very beginning has been people primarily involved in the targeted individuals community, which includes myself. That's people who are subject to these secret classified operations for gang stalking, for harassment, and for various forms of experimentation with microwaves, with voice to skull technologies for implanting dreams, voices, etc. And we're it's important. It's not. It's a growing part of the population who are subject to these forms of harassment, torture, and some driven to suicide as a result.
Hmm.
Uh, but the reason why it's important, well, there are two reasons. There's a practical reason, which is these are the people who have the greatest commitment to actually do something because their lives are in danger. They may not survive. I may not survive. But another part of it is that this is at the heart of this false political culture that we live in. in which all these enormous state crimes are going on and everyone pretends nothing's happening. Until we can speak the truth about what's actually happening, we're not going to make any progress. And targeted individuals, now a rapidly increasing part of the population, are people who have been shut down through illegal means. And in most cases, everyone around them pretends that nothing's going on. And that parallels perfectly 9/11, COVID, Federal Reserve counterfeiting, and a whole host. I mean, now exponentially expanding of basically a criminal economy, a criminal government, a criminal system. And that uh, it resembles, I don't want to make too many comparisons between the late Soviet Union, 1989 to 1991, but the parallels are there. It seems very much that was true, of course, in the Soviet Union and East Germany. That increasingly, as the system falls apart, you rely on secret police and harassment to marginalize and to destroy opposition.
Okay. There are some, you triggered some people when you spoke frankly, in your opinion, that I don't know whether you're calling it a global warming, a climate change. There's a
Right.
whole camp that says CO2 is good. The claim that that burning fossil fuels is a problem is a hoax. Do you want to chime in on that? I mean, it's a swamp of rhetorical circles. Um, but you said that, in your opinion, the ecological conditions of the planet have been severely impacted, I think, by industrialization, by a host of forces that's built into that, and you've elevated restoration of nature. Um, but how do you navigate the CO2 issue? Is real or not real? A problem, a problem?
Right. Well, I'd be happy to have a town meeting, a town hall meeting specifically on that question of global warming and destruction of the climate and the mass extinction taking place at this moment, which humans are at the top of the food chain. So we'll go down before the cockroaches and the ants. So I'd be happy to address that. I would say that all I'll say now, although we can go into this
Yeah,
in another
don't go
format,
into
I'm
it too
afraid
deep,
it's
but
all.
I think, but go ahead.
So all I'll say is this: this is not an opinion issue for me. I have read through. Many people have given me various materials showing that CO2 is not a serious issue, that global warming is a hoax, et cetera, et cetera. I have read many of these documents, and I have found them to be extremely flawed. In most cases, none of them take on any of the serious research. And it's sort of like, the issue of do virus, I mean, we have the same issue, right? Do viruses exist? And people debate this. I have no opinion about whether viruses exist or don't. And it's not a religious issue. But what I noticed in a lot of the writing on saying that viruses are a myth is that they do not take on the fundamental research on virology. I mean, that's how you debunk it, right? You take the fundamental research and you go through and you show how it's flawed. They show they're incidental. And so I have not seen any of these people who are saying global warming is a hoax take on the fundamental research and debunk it. I see them introducing all sorts of stuff that I don't have time to check one by one. But I taught two classes on global warming and on the environment myself. I read a lot more than most candidates do. So I'll just say that.
So I'll just ask one more kind of question as the geopolitical one. Um, and I mean, what is your vision for NATO, uh, for a world that's marked by peace and not war. You're kind of a
Right.
convert swords into plowshares angle here. I assume you would accept the multi-power, multipolarity world system. Uh, I mean, maybe you have thoughts on the United Nations. I think you're kind of bullish on United Nations and I'll just share with you
I
at
am.
um, the
The
Green
potential.
Party, at the Green Party. I went to the
Not
Green
not the
Party.
United Nations today, but the
Well, no,
potential.
no, 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 exactly. But I went to the Green Party annual national meeting, and Sam Husseini, who has a Substack, pointed out that the non-aligned nations, if they get two-thirds of the nations that aren't in the Security Council, they can apparently through a kind of democratic vote um, supersede the Security Council's stances on things. But so geopolitical world, you're talking about the USA going, getting off of the military treadmill of empire.
Right.
Um, and how do we deal with the problem of powerful China and powerful Russia and these non-aligned these nations that are against America? I mean, how do you approach that?
Right. Well, I think we have to. So first, I would say it's not a simple question. There's no, panacea. There's no position which will solve the problem. We have to recognize that China, uh, Iran, for that matter, the BRICS, India, and other countries do offer an alternative in some respects to the American imperialist tradition based on the British Empire. However, uh, global finance has its claws, has its fangs sunk into all those economies. And the global financial elite basically are trying to take over the whole world. They're not interested in nation states. That's one of the weaknesses of the United Nations is that it's tied to this nation state uh, construct, which applies for you and not me, right? But doesn't apply to multinational corporations or investment banks or private equity. They're looking at the whole world. In terms of the issue of security, it's not simple for an obvious reason, which is obviously we want to get rid of this military industrial complex. We want to get rid of war for profit. We want to move away from this horrific move towards world war, which is already well underway. However, at the same time, we must recognize that if we set up an anarchist organic farming community in the countryside and someone sends drones out to kill us all, we're all going to be dead. So, at some level, we have to be prepared for people who are going to be, it's going to be a conflict. It's not going to be pretty. Uh, and so, how do you balance that move back towards peace, towards a peaceful economy, to a healthy economy that's based on agricultural production, local manufacturing, sustainable, environmentally friendly activities, to intellectual and spiritual pursuits by the citizens, which are healthy and enrich our communities, with the need to protect ourselves against these multinational mercenaries and private intelligence firms which are trying to kill us. That's going to be hard. I would say right now, I say first we can have a panel meeting on that issue, security. But I would say to start with that probably the basis of it, going back to the Second Amendment, is that we need to have a form of participatory collective security efforts. That the Second Amendment is not about everyone can have a gun and shoot whoever they want. Yeah. The Second Amendment says that we should have a security system in which citizens participate so as to avoid a mercenary military, which is what a mercenary police force, which is what we have now.
So, if you want to pose a question, make a remark, give an insight, raise your hand, or you could put something in the chat. Um, so, this Epstein business, I mean, what does the Epstein file reveal? I mean, and you're willing
Right.
to call out the Epstein class. People in the Tap Talk community are really strong on the cover up of the Charlie Kirk murder, or his disappearance. I mean, we don't. I mean, there's still a
Right, we
mystery.
don't really know exactly what happened yet, but
So,
the
so why
serious.
don't you riff on the Epstein files and
Right. So
what are
you
your
say Epstein. I mean, some people say Epstein. Epstein. So regarding Epstein, I would first want to say that it is a travesty that we had to wait for Epstein's files when hundreds of women came forward already with testimony and were completely ignored. So I value the testimony of the women who already spoke about it, and some of whom were killed or suicided, whatever, over the last 15 years. So to me, it's a terrible crime that we have to be chasing after these Epstein files when we already have more than enough evidence to convict many of the central figures. That's the first thing I want to say about Epstein. Um, so the second is, well, I mean, it's the same thing. We have already enough evidence to lock up a large number of the major figures in this political, private intelligence, corporate, financial oligarchy. We haven't already enough. And in fact, we only have to, go after two or three and force them to give up all of their information to convict basically or reveal about everybody. So what's holding us up is not the lack of information. What's holding us up is the fact that the United States, since February of 2001, has been a military dictatorship, essentially. There are little waves of openness or closedness, but basically, since the beginning of the Bush administration, it has been a military dictatorship. Certain groups within intelligence and the military working on behalf of international finance essentially make policy in the United States. The step that we must take, and what my campaign about, is that first we recognize where we are. We forget all the delusions. The Democrats are going to sweep the midterms. We're going to get more people in office, whatever. Forget that. Let's get back to where we are. We're in a military dictatorship, which puts on a show. Now, the show may actually include a few things that actually improve lives for some people here and there. But basically, it's a military dictatorship. So, how do we overthrow a military dictatorship? There are concrete approaches to how you do that. But I would say the first is you say it. You say it explicitly, what I'm trying to do in this campaign. So that's, I think, what we really need to start with. And we also have to recognize that it's global, that we're basically every every government in the world, including countries like Iran, are being toyed with. I mean, Iran is maybe better than the US, but being toyed with global financial powers. We see this in the ongoing US Iran war. I mean, once again, we're heading towards peace so that financial speculators can make money for another couple of weeks, and then we'll have war again. And Iran is better, but we're fighting a force, a foe, which is basically global. I mean, Starlink and was it Star Guard? They cover the whole world, right? We have low orbit satellites tracking everything. And as you know, Iran, China, Russia, Brazil have not opposed the use of low orbit satellites. They have not opposed the use of these massive data centers. In fact, they're importing them, building them. So we are fighting two conflicts at once. One is a global war against all of us, in which a billionaire Epstein class basically intends to make us either into slaves or to kill us off. And then we have conflicts between nation states and interest groups, corporations, banks, and that's also real. Both are real. In the same way, in the Second World War, we had a fight between the Soviet Union and Germany or the United States, but then we had, concentration camps and death camps in which millions were put to death. These were two separate wars. as you probably know, when people went to the British embassy and said that the Germans were killing, large numbers of people in Ukraine and Poland, etc., the British said, we're not interested. We're interested in fighting a war with Germany. We're not interested in this stuff. And only did we find out, 60 years after the war, that Standard Oil, Ford Motor Company, IBM were deeply involved in these programs for mass slaughter. I think what's being happening in the United States, the building of concentration camps, death camps, ice camps, of course, around the world as well, is similar. There's a whole classified program similar to the final solution, which is being implemented, but on a much larger scale and much more dangerous.
Big, there's a lot there, Emmanuel. There is a question in the chat from Larry, and he's questioning about Elon Musk's ability to launch rockets that could be aimed at other nations, and is that a threat to humanity? I mean, my quick response is that Elon is doing the bidding of United States empire. He could be captive to that larger technocracy that's emerging. I don't know what your opinion is about technocracy. What would you say to Larry about Elon Musk? And he's not just putting rockets into space; he's actually littering space with millions of these
Right.
satellites. I mean, what are your thoughts on
Right.
Elon
Well,
Musk
so
being a threat?
Elon Musk, like Donald Trump, is a player and he does play his role and he does make money off of it. But he is also a stand in figure for other multi billionaires who don't want to be in the public eye. Since Musk is a narcissist and also an idiot, he's very convenient to use as a face for these interests. What are they trying to do? They're trying to control low orbit space and to weaponize it. I think the launching of missiles, rockets to kill people, to threaten people is part of that. But I wouldn't say it's the primary goal. I think the primary goal is to be able to track and kill anybody, anytime, using rockets sometimes, but probably more with drones, with directed energy, with microwaves, and with a whole host of other things, including simply cutting you off from being able to use your bank or being able to buy things, and also the control of water, food, transportation, etc. So I think the Starlink system is basically the the billionaire Epstein class wants total control. Means of production, means of distribution, means of consumption, information, education. Basically, they don't want anybody to be capable of doing what we're trying to do, which is organizing meaningful resistance. And they will do whatever it takes. Fortunately for us, there are some people, even in the most corrupt parts of the system, who are sympathetic to what our approach is, or Truth Action Project, the efforts of Green Liberty, and other brave souls out there. I meet every so often people who I didn't know before who've been fighting for years for this. So there is sympathy. I think we should recognize and we should give thanks. I mean, to all the Homeland Security people watching this show, that if Homeland Security didn't want this to happen, this show would not be going on. That clearly there are people sympathetic even within the most corrupt and most dangerous parts of the system. And we need to, we should be unforgiving in our demand for justice, for compensation, for truth, the true story of what has happened, especially since 9/11, but further back to Kennedy and even further back to the start of the Federal Reserve and even beyond that. I don't want to go all the back to Adam and Eve, but it's been a long time. And at the same time, we should be welcoming for those who are willing to support us wherever you are. But we must demand scientific truth. Truth is not democratic. I embrace democracy as a form of government, but truth is not something that we vote on. It's not subject to, polls or opinion.
Well, we have debate on this list here about the word democracy relative to the republic of the nation, and but I think we understand that what you're getting at is transparency and accountability, the ability of people to participate. We have to be consent to be governed, and part of that consent is that we, the people, have input into policy development. And so clearly, you're on the side of the people, their voice being, uh, solicited and cultivated to develop policy. Because right now we don't, I mean, what's the official? There's a poll. I mean, it's a finding that the opinion of people is actually zero in terms of any influence on government. I mean, however, we're coming on the 25th anniversary, and the Jersey Girls did lobby their representatives. They did get a 9/11 commission, but that 9/11 commission was corrupted on account of it was staged by the Bush people and so on. So you have a reflection on that, and but go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the term democracy is overused. That's the way we have to start. That there are, I guess, and there are multiple points, but I'd say there are three pillars. One is democracy, reflecting the will, the needs of the people, and that should be part of government, part of education, part of our society and our culture. Uh, but the second is the republic. Republic following law, procedure, which is predictable and that defends the rights of the minority. So you can't just have everyone vote and take away, property or other things from the minority, and also that you can't be bought off. That the system works no matter how much money you pay people to support you. And the third, I think, is scientific truth. And scientific truth is the hard one, and that's what's been the war that's being waged from 9/11 on has been against scientific truth. Is to say, what is your opinion, right, on 9/11? I mean, in a way, I'd say I'm not. We shouldn't care about someone's opinion about 9/11. We should look at the scientific truth. The problem with the word scientific truth is that it's often misused. People say, well, you don't have any proof. And proof, I guess, must mean, classified internal documents, within the CIA, right, or, Mossad. Well, obviously, we're not going to get those anytime in my lifetime. We don't need them. Scientific method means that you postulate multiple theories, hypotheses to describe what we see. And then you continue to observe the facts, and you see which hypothesis meets the what we observe, and you eliminate those hypotheses which don't meet what we observe, what we investigate, and then through this process we come up with an explanation. Now, the hypothesis may involve things which cannot be immediately detected through the naked eye or through our immediate observations. That is not that is scientific, right? I mean, ideas about how atoms work, how physics work, how the universe work, were scientifically advanced to a high level of sophistication before we were able to observe many of the causes, right? I mean, Einstein was able to come up with many ideas about the bending of light because of gravity, because various phenomena and the special relativity before he could observe these things, because we can pursue things scientifically without actually having all the classified documents before us. So I think it's an intentionally fake argument to say it's not scientific if you can't show the internal documents.
Hmm. And this is around getting truth about what we call state crimes, and they are national security operations. And as you're saying, they're concealed, they're hidden away, locked away. Um, and that's our struggle, I think, in the truth movement. And that's the struggle you're taking in your push for getting elected president. Um, I think what we're going to do, we're going to wrap up our interview and end the recording, and we can hang out and chat, and you can stay on and share with people. But I think what you've done in this hour with us at TAP is introduce your campaign and your goals. Clearly, you need to be uh, you as running for president. You are endeavoring to build a movement, so you necessarily need to reach out to other groups that are also concerned. What, just in closing, what other groups are you kind of entertaining, making contact with, getting endorsements, and uh, and so on. Like the
Right.
like
Well,
the, I mean,
I
when,
mean,
well,
in
let
that
me just,
respect, I would.
yeah, just to be clear. So TAP is building partners with it, which is a strategic goal to make a community of people that are doing what you're doing. Now, the anti-technocracy people are prominent. There's good old, I mean, there's the mainstream activist groups, but I don't think you're going to be working much in the mainstream. So I guess I'm kind of asking, where do you see yourself kind of doing outreach and so on?
Right. Well, we start here with this. This is the first for this campaign
Mhm.
officially as a registered candidate. And I would, I guess, quote Malcolm X in that respect. Anybody seeking truth and justice is I welcome to work with, even if we disagree on certain points. However, I personally am not interested in compromising on critical issues. We can work together on those things we agree on, but I'm not going to bend over to things which I think are not scientifically supported or not ethically supported. And there are, I would say, some differences in my approach. Of course, as the campaign, if it takes off, it will no longer just be me, right? And me and my small group. I'll have to reflect the people in the campaign. Uh, the campaign itself must be to some degree democratic, must be to some degree a republic. The campaign will be the sort of the zygote, the seed for a effective government that will replace what we have now. That's where it starts. This group is the beginning of this provisional government for what the United States can be going forward. What I would say in closing is that to set myself apart, perhaps from other truth advocates, I first, I want a broad range. I want to talk about topics which are interest to ordinary people who are not necessarily locked on conspiracies or state crimes. Secondly, I don't really agree on blaming Mossad or CIA and going after them for these state crimes. In all of those cases, it was classes of billionaires hiding behind private equity multinational banks who carried out these crimes, and that Mossad, CIA, Homeland Security, other things are paid assassins, paid mercenaries. They should be treated like you treat, a butcher who kills chickens. Yeah, he kills the chickens. It's real. If it was illegal, he should be punished. But we should not be led into the dead end of thinking that, oh, it was the CIA who did these things, because the CIA never acts without someone behind the curtains telling them what to do. And we should make demands. We should not say COVID-19 was terrible, it was fake, and stop there. We should not say 9/11 was a crime, it was a conspiracy. We have to make demands. Frederick Douglass says, nothing. Power never concedes without a demand, and that means concretely saying that those in that, so let's take the three 9/11. I mean, for me, the three principle, right? 9/11, COVID-19, and then the counterfeiting of money using the Federal Reserve and Department of Treasury, et cetera. These massive, massive state crimes. There are more. There are more, but these are the three big ones. Uh, we have to demand compensation. We have to seize the assets of all the corporations and all the rich people behind this. We have to demand that all documentation be made public for a so the entire world can read it. And that this is not going to be easy to do, but until we make the demand, we're not going to make progress.
So on that note, the Larry asked in the chat, how do we deal with the billionaires? And the short answer is with a mass movement. And I think that's what you're about, Emmanuel. I know it's a lonely project that you're taking on, but you do have a team, and you're doing this
We do.
because you understand there needs this, that nothing is going to change without a mass movement, and you're trying to tell a story for that possibility of that mass movement, I think is a fair way to characterize what you're up to. I mean, the hard question of how do you seize the assets of billionaires? Well, I think we're going to save that for another time. Claiming assets from billionaires. There's a Fifth Amendment, I think, that you can't take property without compensation. So there's all kinds of
Well, you
things.
can if it's a crime. I mean, you can, if it's a felony, you can seize people's assets.
Okay.
So this is I talked about science is one issue, right? Where people make unfair demands of what scientific, uh, investigation requires. But there is also a fake idea about law, which says that somehow we have to have all this evidence before we can legally prosecute people. Simply not the case. People are locked up in jail for life based upon the testimony of eyewitnesses and testimony of experts. That's all it takes. So the reason why courts dismiss cases against the CIA or against Homeland Security or against BlackRock or other things is not because it's legally questionable. It's because the courts are subject to classified directives from Homeland Security, which limit their action, i.e., they're not serving as courts. And the reason for that is because the United States is a military dictatorship. Let's just start there.
Okay, so let's go. We're going to end the recording, and then we can hang out and chat. And again, thank you very much, Emmanuel, for coming on to Truth Action Project Tap Talk and basically launching your campaign. People can find your work on the links at the newsletter. Subscribe to Tap and get the newsletter. Like our social media. This presentation will be posted at our Rumble site. I will share it with you so you can post it yourself, Emmanuel, and make comments on the Rumble Tap Action site. Like us, share us, and of course, we do have a donate button on the website, and that helps. Donations do help with our overhead and organizational expenses. So thank you very much, Emmanuel. I'm going to end the recording now.